A really common thing I hear in some of the comments on my social media, is it easier to get good welds with an inverter type machine? Which meaning that possibly an inverter type machine should be easier than welding with our old buddy, the transformer type machine. Well, let me tell you, after years of experience and learning exactly what makes a good TIG weld, I can make either type of machine work for me, and I can tweak each to get the results that I want. Let's start out with a few of the reasons why an inverter type machine is fun to use. There is one feature about an inverter type machine that's extremely fun to use, and this is the frequency setting. Basically, to break this down as easy as possible, when you adjust the frequency on an inverter type machine, you can use it to adjust the set level of hertz, which directly affects the shape of the weld as well as the arc that does the weld itself. With a higher frequency setting or a higher hertz setting, we typically see a tighter and more narrow and focused arc. Or with a lower frequency setting or a lower hertz setting, we typically will see the arc cone become a little more general and not quite as focused as a higher setting. The beautiful thing about an inverter type machine is with some machines you can crank this setting upwards of over 400 hertz. And sometimes you can even drop it as low as about 40 hertz, typically somewhere around that range. Now, another difference between an inverter type machine and a transformer type machine is a transformer type machine doesn't have the ability to do this at all. Unfortunately, the way a transformer type machine works, only able to run off of the set amount of hertz that basically it's powered by. Do you know what that setting is off the top of your head? 60 hertz. So with a transformer type machine, you can try all you want, but you can't adjust or customize this setting to influence the arc cone or the way it behaves with a frequency setting. So with a transformer type machine, we only have 60 hertz to work with. If you don't like it, too bad. So without the ability to adjust this really important detail, can we still get some nice stuff? Absolutely we can. I've been welding and production welding for 20 years or so now, and when I first started learning, I had to learn on a transformer type machine, and still to this day, I use a transformer type machine. Here we're looking at a couple photos that I have done with a transformer type machine. Now you can see some of this stuff is pretty heavy weldment. These were done approximately over 230 amps, so you can imagine I had my settings pretty dialed to do this kind of stuff. But when I get my sweet spot figured out of what's gonna work for me, you can see I get some pretty decent results here. So with the transformer type machine, as far as settings go, one of the main things that I like adjusting is our balance setting. So a balance setting, in case you don't know, with aluminum welding, it's gonna affect the way that our AC sine wave behaves. We're gonna be able to adjust a little bit more positive side of the cycle or perhaps a little more negative side of the cycle. I've talked about this on my channel a little bit before, but I personally prefer to change my balance setting depending on what type of welding I'm doing. There's no blanket setting that I prefer to use that works across the board. For a lot of thin material, where typically I'll be welding obviously at lower amperage, I will actually turn the positive side of my AC cycle up a little bit. This is gonna allow the positive side of the AC cycle to do more of a thorough job with the cleaning action, both at the workpiece, but especially back towards my tungsten. Subjectively, I find at low amperage, even if I haven't dipped my tungsten's gonna lose its shape and its cleanliness a little bit over time. It'll start to look a little bit frosty, it'll collect a little bit of this weird stuff on it, and basically it's gonna lose its good shape that I wanna keep over time. And in doing so, I'm gonna start to lose the quality of my arc. Obviously, that's a big problem. Whereas when I'm running at lower amperages, I'll typically run a higher positive setting. This is gonna direct a little more cleaning action back towards my tungsten. It's gonna give me a little bit more life out of that electrode when using a transformer type machine. So there's a setting right there that's gonna get you a little more life, a little more performance out of your tungsten perhaps. What's the most important part of every weld? Start. And in doing so, you're gonna get better starts too. So again, with a transformer type machine, when I'm running at higher amperages, typically somewhere over 200 or 220 amps, I'm gonna turn my positive side of the cycle down quite a bit. What this is gonna do is this is gonna help to prevent any fluttering on the end of my tungsten. Perhaps you've seen this before under higher amperage, you might see the tip of your tungsten start to flutter or become unstable. This is obviously a bad thing. Now, this is my own opinion, but I prefer running a ball on the end of my tungsten, regardless if I'm using a transformer type machine or an inverter type machine. If you want to see the reasons why I prefer doing that, leave a comment down below. I might pop off an episode about that. But when we are welding under higher amperages, obviously the last thing we want to see is the tip of that tungsten start to flutter or become misshapen. We don't want it becoming erratic or losing its shape. You're going to lose the ability to control your arc at this point. But again, adjusting our balance setting on a transformer type machine is going to help us keep our tungsten in shape longer. And in doing so, we're going to get better arc performance. Another thing we're going to be able to do to get good performance without being able to change change the frequency or hertz setting on a machine. I've talked about this a little bit before, but I'm actually going to start to experiment with the amount of stick out with my tungsten. Sometimes having a little bit of extra stick out is actually going to tighten up the cone of your arc just a little bit. It's going to focus it in a little bit more. But one thing I really like doing is it'll let me get a little bit closer to my workpiece because it improves visibility, which is a very important thing with TIG welding. So in getting a little bit closer, we're going to tighten up that arc cone quite a bit, as opposed to if we're far away. Obviously, as you pull the stick out a little bit further, we may have to do some adjustments with gas settings or cup size. But when you get it dialed in, you can actually get some pretty good results, improving your arc performance by doing this. Now, have you ever tried to pull the tungsten back in quite far? You will find that your arc becomes a little bit more general. Arc cone might be a little bit wider, but one of the things that's going to happen when you do this, you're going to lose your visibility, which might cause you to pull your standoff distance back a little bit. And in doing so, widening the arc cone. So in some cases, pulling your stick out a little bit further might give you a little bit of an edge to tighten up this arc cone. So again, we don't have the ability to adjust this setting on a transformer type machine. This might be something to help you out. Like I said, I've been a production TIG welder for 20 years now. And when I started back at that time, there was only transformer type machines available to me to learn on. So in doing so, we had to learn all these different ways to make them work as best as we could, and for all the different jobs we were going to end up doing. Working with an inverter type machine now, like one of my Everlast machines here, is an absolute treat when you already know how to get the best out of a transformer type machine. Check the link to my machines in the description below. When you get an inverter type machine, there's plenty more bells and whistles you can utilize to get even better results. You can work with thinner, more delicate materials and get some incredible results doing it. Another cumbersome thing about a transformer type machine is its overall size. These things are monsters, they're huge, they weigh a ton, they're inconvenient to have in your shop. An inverter type machine, because of the way it utilizes the power, we don't have a need for a lot of the stuff that's in a transformer type machine. And in doing so, they can make these machines much smaller. They're lighter, they're easier to move around, easier to ship. Obviously, you can get them right to your doors nowadays. So if you want to go a little bit deeper on the Everlast machine, check that link out. Go do a random act of kindness for a stranger. For Pacific Arc TIG Welding, my name is Dusty, Phil and Chill. We will talk soon. Peace.